like it already has. And so we trust you with it, and we ask all this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Good morning. I'm John Duncan. I'm the Dean of the College of Business and Entrepreneurship, and it's been a real privilege today to be able to participate in organizing a chapel service that's going to think about the idea of business and business as ministry. Appreciate these guys from Grace Church, these alumni leading us this morning in worship. But I don't want you to think that the worship part of this chapel service has ended right now, because I want to invite you to worship with your mind now as you listen to what's going to be presented to you. We believe that work is worship. We believe that God intends us to use every part of our being to worship Him, and that work is one of the best ways that we can glorify Him. And rather than stand up here and try to give you an exposition of what we think about business, we thought that since a picture is worth 1,000 words, we would give you a picture this morning of what it can really look like to honor God through business. So we've invited a good friend of mine, Peter Freissle, to come speak today. Peter is the president and CEO of Polydeck Screen Corporation, and they are really the industry leader in making screens for the mining process. They sell their products all over the world. Their headquarters is here in Spartanburg, South Carolina. Peter has spoken to the major marketplace ministry groups, sharing his story at places like the Fellowship of Companies for Christ International annual meeting, or the C12 group's big meeting that they do. He's a very much in-demand speaker, because what he's going to do is tell his story of how he uses his business as a platform for ministry, and how that business can have an impact for Christ on their employees, their customers, the suppliers, their communities. And so without taking up any more of his time, I want to introduce Peter Freissle to you this morning. Please listen to him, and I think you have a better picture of what God can do through a business after he speaks this morning. Peter, come share with us.
Well, good morning to all of you. I know the group is a little smaller here in the auditorium, but hopefully online there are a lot of people watching. So to both you and those outside, welcome, and thank you for having me. A big thank you to John Duncan. I really appreciate the privilege of being able to come and share my story. What I'm going to do today is share a very simple story. As Mother Teresa says, we can do no great things, only small things with great love. And that's kind of the message that I want to share with you today. My story is not a great, grandiose story, but it's a simple story of my life. It's not an academic story. In John Duncan's classes and many of the business classes here, you hear a lot of academics. I was not very good at academics, but I wanted to apply what I learned in practice. So today is going to be kind of like a practice exposition of my life, and trying to take the academic principles and apply them. But not an academic, but also the principles of spirituality. As you can tell by my southern accent, I'm not from around here. So my southern accent hails from as far south as you can go, South Africa, which is very, very far south. And so a little bit of the story is my dad started our business in 1959 in South Africa, and started as a one-man show, started from a garage literally. And I really, myself and our family, owe him a lot for the hard work he put in. It's kind of a rags to riches story, and many of you out here thinking of opening your own businesses, he's really a great example of how you go from a single dollar to a global company. And just awesome to see that, and we're very grateful to him. So I started in South Africa. I did my education there, did my postgraduate education there, joined the business, and then I had the opportunity to come to America. And I was saying, should I go to America? Should I stay in South Africa? So at that point, South Africa was very turbulent, if you like. And so I said, God, I'm going to put it in your hands, and if you want me to leave, send me a message. And a couple of weeks later, I'm driving down the road, stop at a red light, a car pulls out in front of me, kind of from here to you away, stops, and I'm like, that's a weird place for a guy to stop a car. And the back doors open, and two guys jump out with what looks like a broom with a bag over it. And I'm like, So I started driving. And as I drove, the bag came off, and there were two AK-47 machine guns. And they emptied the machine guns into my car as I drove past. And I didn't realize what had really happened, but when I got out of there and looked down, I saw blood all over my shirt, and I'm like, whoa. And what had happened is the bullets had hit the glass, and the glass shrapnel hit the side of my face, and the blood was coming from there. But I didn't see anything else. And so when I got to the hospital to extract all the shrapnel and glass, the nurse looked at me, she says, wow, you are a lucky son of a gun. And I said, what do you mean? She said, look at this. There's a hole in the front of your shirt here, in there, and out the side. And it corresponded to a hole in the side of the door. So if you ever think of a coincidence, that's, I don't know, I'd say that's more like a God incidence. It's something that you can't explain, but God touches your heart in a special way. And that night I said, dear Lord, thank you for the answer. I'm leaving tomorrow. But in future, if you could use non-violent methods, would be awesome. So be careful when you pray. Try to put a caveat at the end, no bullets. So anyway, this is a story here about our company. This is where we're headquartered now. We've moved our headquarters here. We have patents across the world. We have 40 patents in the mining industry. We serve the gold, diamond, and coal industries. And we make equipment here in Spartanburg. Our campus is all the way from the left all the way to the buildings on the right-hand side, and we're continuing to grow. At the bottom is a plant down in Santiago, Chile, and we have a facility in Lima, Peru, and licensees all over the world that license our patents. So I was kind of heading down this road, and what I want to show you for a second is, I don't know if many of you know this movie called Gold Rush, and Gold Rush is a show on TV that shows in the northern part of Alaska, the miners, they mine for gold in this like reality show. Our equipment is used on that reality show, and it's viewed by 20 million people every Friday night. So that's kind of our claim to fame. So I'll just show you a short excerpt from the two main actors. I'm not sure if you can call them actors, they're kind of reality guys, but when you see it, our equipment is what you'll see there.
When we were going to put a new plant together, the first thing that came to mind, Polydeck.
We wanted Polydeck. Great product. Stuff wears better than steel. We've got over 100,000 yards through this thing, and I think it's going to go at least another season.
I think it will too. Probably one of the few things that hasn't broken down on us this year. Really been, our mainstay. This top deck takes a lot of abuse. We got a lot of jagged bedrock across it, and looks awesome.
Looks great. Polydeck makes a great product. Big thumbs up to Polydeck.
Polydeck.
So I'm not sure those guys would make it in Hollywood proper, but they have a really cool show. So I came to America and started this thing called the American Dream. Most of society teaches us what the American dream is. So kind of just defining what that American dream was for me was, it was successful business. It was growing like crazy. I came over here. I really worked hard. I wanted to see a gold rush, if you like, in my own life. I wanted to have all the toys. I wanted to have the lifestyle. I wanted to live the American dream, kind of the Trump dream, if you like. It's kind of like politicized right now, but that's kind of what we portrayed. Then, the house, a car, vacations, all that forms part of the whole package. But I'd been doing this for about 10 years, built the business up to roughly 350 employees, and it was growing, and it was great. But I just had this empty feeling in my heart. I felt, is this really what success looks like? Or is there more? Is there something more to this? I had very little time for myself. I was stressed out all the time, had no time for prayer. And so I was like, well, you know what? I need to go somewhere. And a guy came to me and said, there's a retreat in Atlanta, a silent retreat that I encourage you to go to. So off to Atlanta I went, and I thought a silent would be pretty cool. I took my golf magazines with and all my stuff. Well, it wasn't so silent. God spoke to me in an amazing way. It changed my whole life. And what I'm about to share with you is that moment when God speaks to your heart. You have the choice. Do I say yes, accept, and surrender? Or do I say, you know what? I still want the American dream. But you know what I'm here to share today is you can have both. And work is worship, as John says. And what can we do with these things called companies and businesses in a way that glorifies God? So at that retreat, this is kind of the me that was there. The retreat master said, I want you to divide up your life into pieces and see how you're doing in each of these areas. And so I took this pie chart and said, okay, I have family, I have 4 kids, and I'm kind of doing okay. God is a slice. I go to church on Sunday, and I do my 1 hour in church, and I do all that stuff. I give socially to Honduras and Nicaragua, and I give some money. I tithe. So I'm kind of okay. But the rest was all about me. And God said, I want to be the center of your life. I want to impact every component, every area of your life. But it's going to be tough because I want access to those areas of your life. And I was like, I'm not sure I want to give over that, I relinquish that control. And as I went through this retreat, I just felt God's mercy and love. For I'd lived in a world, I was materialistic. I'd been sucked into the world. And I didn't even really know who God was anymore. And I just felt His mercy, His forgiveness, His love at that retreat in a way I can't explain. It just went so deep inside of me. I said, wow, He really, really loves me. Not for what I do, but for who I am. And that's awesome. So He can forgive me for all that junk, the way I treated my employees, the way I treated everyone in my circle of influence. I said, I want to put God in the middle and have Him infiltrate and touch every component. And that's the picture I came up, the new God-centered me. I wanted to go out. But what I realized at that point, I'd been living like a submarine. I call myself the submarine Christian. And many of you may or may not be able to identify that. On the surface, on Sunday, we're really cool. We sing in a band, we do all these things, whatever our kind of flavor is of Christianity. But the rest of the week, we dive. And there's no evidence in our lives, in daily living, that we belong to Christ and that we honor Him and serve Him through our actions and the way we treat others. And so I had to kind of figure out, what was I going to do? And during that retreat, there were 2 primary concepts that hit me. The Bible's a really big book, and you can get very academic and you can dive really deep. But I remember in the Bible, there's one passage where the disciples came to Jesus and said, Master, if you had to summarize the Bible, how would we do that? He said, there's 2 things. Love me with all your heart and love your neighbor as I love you. And that summarizes everything, right? And then I thought to myself, well, how have I been treating others? How have I been loving others? And there's the parable, right, of the Good Samaritan who walks down the road and the guy's in the ditch laying there bleeding, and the Levite priest walks right virtually over the guy. And that picture dawned in my mind, and I thought to myself, I've had these employees in my company, 350 of them every day, and they're bleeding in the ditch, and I've been walking over them. I've been using them to live my American dream. I felt sick to my stomach. And that's where this parable really struck my heart and said, you know what? I need to take the gifts that I have, my donkey, load up this employee who's in the ditch, take him to the hospital and care for him, and give the innkeeper money to take care of him. And that picture just got so deep in my mind. I said, you know what? I'm going back to my company, and I'm going to do that for my employees. I'm going to live that parable. And the 3 things that I realized is people struggle in 3 areas. They struggle physically, emotionally, and spiritually. That's how we're made up, right? So if I would go back, how would I do things? And so this new paradigm dawned on me. And a paradigm is a way of seeing the world, the way you see things. I saw it as a business owner whose role was to make money, to take care of my family and myself. But the new paradigm was to care for people in a way that honors God and takes care of them emotionally, physically, and spiritually in a way that leads them to heaven. That's a new job description that I just kind of realized. And a paradigm is a new way of seeing things. And the little logo I put up there is FedEx. If you look at FedEx, you'll see, but there's an arrow in the logo. I don't know if any of you have seen that before, but there's an arrow. And the arrow is between the E and the X, and it's pointing that way. Once you see that arrow, you can never unsee it. Every time you see a logo, a FedEx logo from today, the first thing you'll look at is the arrow. And what I hope today is that with my story that I'm about to share with you, that you'll see that arrow, that you'll see that your lives and your jobs and your future careers are there to glorify God and bring you purpose and meaning and joy in a way that nothing else can. And I realized that I've lived both lives. Some of the real paradigms that hit me was, firstly, I didn't own it. I thought I had a certificate saying Peter Freissle owns 100% of Polydeck. That's proof, right? I can go to anyone and say, I own it. But do I really own it? And there's a really cool thing. What you know what you really own is when you look at your life. St. Augustine says, look at your life from your deathbed. And how much do you own when you're on your deathbed? Zip all. That little box is very small, and you can't take anything with you. So really, what do you own? You own nothing. So if that's the principle in your mind, then the company that you run is not yours. You're a steward of a gift. It's kind of like the parable of the talents, the 10 talents. God's going to come back and ask me, what did I do with this thing called a company with 350 employees and all these different family members? What did I do? I don't think he's going to ask me, well, Peter, how much money did you make? I think he's going to ask me, what did you do with the money to glorify me? And so with that gift that you're given comes a responsibility. In my case, it was a company. In each of your cases, it may be something else. You may have a gift in art. You may have a gift in speaking or in creativity or in business or in the medical field. But the question is, what are you going to do with that gift? Are you going to use it for yourself like I did to make yourself wealthy? Or are you going to open your hands and give it to others in a way that enriches people's lives and helps them to see that Christ is the center of your life? So really, our careers, as John was saying in the beginning, work is worship. So whether you're an owner of a business or whether you're an employee within a business, work is worship. So the question then becomes like the submarine thing. Can someone, if they came to your office one day when you're in the workforce, come into your office and within a 5-minute discussion with you, be able to tell that God is the center of your life? Will there be anything in your office that says that you're a Christian? Is it in the way you speak? Is there a way that radiates from you your faith? Because if not, faith without works is dead. And so the last thing on the slide there is the 2 most important moments in your life. The first one is the moment you're born, and the second one is the moment you find out why. Why am I alive? Why did God pour the Spirit into me that created life? Why did He do that? And what's the purpose of my life? And I challenge you, if you sit here for a second, if I asked you to write one sentence down, could you define the purpose of your life? Most of us can't. After that retreat, I couldn't write it down. So I spent several months trying to define what is the purpose of my life. And so not only in my personal life, but I also said, what is the purpose of our company? So I came back from that retreat and I said, guys, we're no longer going to be just about making money. So we said we divided our purpose statement up into, number 1, to serve our customers and stakeholders, our employees, with excellence. So everything we want to do in excellence to honor God. Number 2 is we want to achieve profitable growth. There is nothing wrong with profit. Profit is a good thing. The question is, what do we do with the profit? So we decided, let's define what we're going to do with that profit. And so we said, the profit enables us to care for people in a way that honors God. So that was a whole new paradigm for us as a company. The other thing we did is we said, well, if we're going to do that, what values are we going to use? What are going to be the core values of our business that we're going to run by? Because people have to know. It's not just something that's in your head. You have to all kind of sing the same song. So we wrote this document. It says, we're a company grounded in the Christian values of humility, honesty, integrity, trust, respect, kindness, accountability, and a sense of giving back through social responsibility. Our goal as a company is to create eternal value by striving to honor God in all that we do. We put the word striving in there because we don't always honor God in everything we do, but we strive. This is reflected in how we conduct our business and how we care for our employees, who are our greatest asset. So now that seems like super fun and easy. It's just a few words, right? But now come the moment that God challenged me. He said, I want you to take that and share it with the world. I want you to put it on your website. I want to put it, this is my front of my business card. I want you to put it on the back side. I want you to declare me to the world. Whew. Now the rubber met the road. It's kind of like on the edge of a cliff. You look over and you're like, whoo, I know this God thing is real, but you want me to jump off there? God, I'm not sure you're going to catch me, man. But you know what he said? He said, jump. I got you. I am the master of the universe. That's pretty powerful, huh? That's a pretty big guy, huh? And when he tells you that, you jump. And I did. It was freaking scary, I can promise you that. I get teary even 10 years later, man. That moment, I'm like, really? And then on worst was, I said to all my employees, we got 50 sales guys, I said, I want you to put this on the back of your business card. And they're like, Peter, can we have 2? Like one with and one without, and we'll figure it out. We know, we're smart sales guys. I said, no, we're going to do one. So they said, how about you do it first? I said, well, okay, God, I'm in this. Let's go. I have the largest client in our company that I built up, and it's in Indonesia. Many of you may not know, Indonesia is the largest Muslim country on earth. 95% Muslim people. So how do you think a card that says we are a company grounded in the Christian values of blah, 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 is going to go down there? So I'm like, okay, let's go. So I went over there, and this was I'd been there once before, and we had about 10% of the business. And our product was doing good. So I went to the senior managers, and there was a new guy in charge, and he said, can I have your business card? So I kind of took it and like slid it very strategically that way. Don't look at the back. And so he said, let's go look at your equipment, see how it's working. We walked through the mine, we did our thing, and he was very impressed. Our equipment was doing really well. So we come back, and that night he takes me to, because the mine is in Papua New Guinea. It's up in it's the largest copper and gold mine on the planet. And so you fly in by helicopter. So I got in there, and he took me to his house that night, and we spent. So as we getting out the car, he says to me, Peter, I read your business card. I'm like, that's going to be interesting. He said, well, you know, I admire you. He says, those values you got on the back of the card, they're my values. I believe in those values. He says, I would like to understand more about your God that you serve, that you have the courage to write that down. So he invited me to his house, and we spent that night speaking about faith, family, and values. The next day we go up to the mine, has a big meeting. He calls all his senior managers together, and he says, guys, I would like to hear from you about Peter's product. And they went around the room, and they all said, yeah, it's doing really good, and blah, blah, blah. He says, well, I've made a decision. He says, I'm going to give Peter 100% of our business. We're going to sign a contract, and I want to know from any of you if you disagree with that. And there was silence. He said, and I plan to do that for the life of the mine. We signed a contract for the life of the largest mine on the planet, for 100% of the equipment. Do you think it's a coincidence? Or do you think the master of the universe said to Abram, go take Isaac to the top of the hill and go take a big sword, man? I felt like that. And wow, I came back from that. I felt like I was on fire, man. I felt like God was in my pocket. And I went back, called all the sales guys together, and I said, nah. Look at what this did. And so they started clamoring. And I can tell you story after story. I wrote a book called The Business Card. If any of you are interested in it, it's on Amazon, and John Duncan will tell you how to get hold of it. It's a simple little book, but it's full of anecdotal stories of how this card changed lives across the planet because of that faith, that stepping out. And it's been an amazing, amazing journey. I don't have time. There's 20, 30 stories like I've just told you now. Each of our salesmen contributed to this book of stories that happened in their lives when they were willing to pull that out. Miraculous stories that, you can't make stuff like that up. So I came back to the company, and now I've got my card, I've got my deal. What am I going to do? Is it just about the card, or is it more? And God is love, right? So how would I take love into a company? It's kind of a weird place to be. I'm supposed to be a CEO of a global company, and I'm talking about love? It's like kind of weird. So I decided to call it caring. So we started this concept of caring, showing God's love with respect. Because our company, as in most companies across the United States, 70% of our employees don't go to church, have no faith background. So when you bring your message of God's love into the workplace, you have to do it with respect. You have to be kind. You have to do it with love and not beat people on the back of the head with a Bible. Treating them with respect and dignity as part of God's bigger family. So how would I practically do that? So what we came up with is this concept of a caring team. What we did is we took 10% of our total profits and put them into a fund called a caring fund. We democratically elected people from throughout the business. Every department, you'll see them there. Every department is represented there. And we gave them 10% of our profits. That's a big number. And it was really scary. There was another one of those moments. God, I'm not sure these guys are going to squander that money in 10 minutes. And what then? He said, I want you to trust them. So we picked guys that really have good faith backgrounds and good hearts. And they started to administer this program. And they meet on a regular basis to decide how to spend that money. And in the case of our company right now, it comes to almost $1 million that's in a pot that they get to use. So what did they decide? So we gave them some parameters. And we said, we want you to work around a 9-box matrix. On the vertical, you've got the community, the family, and the employees themselves. On the horizontal, you've got physical, emotional, and spiritual. We said to them, we want you to spend that money in every one of those 9 boxes in a way that enriches people's lives and brings them closer to heaven. So that's a big deal. And over the time, you can see some of the programs I'll just share with you quickly. Home repair fund, car repair fund, benevolent fund when there's crises in every employee's life, wellness programs, sports teams, addiction recovery, and the list goes on, scholarships, marriage retreats, financial budgeting. Then on the spiritual side, we decided to get a chaplain. We opened a chapel in our company. We started prayer groups, Bible studies in our company. And we now are like a little church. But what's awesome is we do it with respect. We have our third shift is people from Laotia. They're Buddhist. How do we treat them? We have to treat them with respect. And the purpose of this whole thing is to display God's love first before you have the right to declare it. It's kind of like John Maxwell says. He says, I first have to know you care before I'm prepared to listen to what you say. And that's a very important thing, especially when it comes to spirituality in a company. People want to see that you're authentic, that you live your life first authentically before they're willing to listen to what you have to say. So how would we do that? We started this way. Home repairs. Anybody in our company who had a home that was run down could fill out a request, and on a weekend we'd send a team of employees, volunteers, to go fix anything on your house. $5,000, $10,000, $20,000 worth of repairs. If your car breaks down, you get this 800 number. When it breaks down, you come back, you call this number, they'll pick up your car, repair it, and bring it back, no charge. For you and your spouse. The programs go on and on. I don't have time to share them all with you. But there comes a moment where an employee in a moment of crisis needs help. And there's an old saying. It says that 80%, there was actually a big survey done, that 80% of people coming to faith after the age of 18 do it during a moment of crisis. So we have 3 types of employees in our company. Those are about to go into crisis, those are in a crisis, and those that just came out of one. It's life. As you guys go through life, you'll see life is full of crises. And it's at those moments of crises that we become vulnerable, that God opens our ears and allows us to see a glimpse of kindness from another human being. And if this company that we formed is there during your moment of crisis, when you're in the ditch like that parable of the Good Samaritan, when you have nowhere to go, you've just gone through a divorce, your child is on drugs, all these things are real, they happen. And when there's someone beside you that says, I'll lift you up and I'll give you the resources and I'll help you. If you do that often enough, you know what happens? People ask, why? Why are you doing that? And the answer for us is simple. We've been given these gifts by God, and all we're doing is handing them on to you. And so this is an amazing journey that we've been on. And one of the things we did is we started a chaplaincy service in our company. Every employee has access to a chaplain on a daily basis. Just like you have a chaplain here, we have one in our company. I want to share this short story. This story was so impactful that it wound up in the Wall Street Journal as an article on the 3rd page. This story here I'm about to share with you touched the heart of a journalist who wrote the story and made huge news. So it's our kind of little claim to fame.
The corporate chaplain system is something great. I'd never heard of it before I came to Polydeck, and we started it up since I've come to work here. Jeff Brown he's unbelievable as our corporate chaplain. What astounded me that was in a couple weeks of his coming here, he could name anybody by name in the whole plant. He just became part of us. And a personal point, my sister was sick and on machines, and we were going to unplug the machines. My pastor was out of town at the time, out of state actually. And Jim Crandall called Jeff, and he was at the hospital about before I was, and he was with us, and he was praying with us, my family and I, as my sister passed away. So I'm really up on the corporate chaplains.
So let me ask you a simple question. If you had an employee like this, and he had another opportunity, let's say this man earns $20 an hour, and he had BMW or whatever company around offer him $20 an hour, or 21, do you think he'll leave? No. He's surrounded by this net of caring in a deep emotional, spiritual, physical way. And so as a result of that, we started a chapel in our company where people can pray. We have Bible studies on a regular basis where now almost a third of our employees who don't go to church on Sunday, they come to that. And we use the old Baptist methodology, feed them and they will come. And so we feed them. Costs us a lot of money every year, but you know what? If we're able to impact one soul, it's worth every cent of those thousands of meals. And that's God's economy, right? It's doing things with an eternal perspective. And it's hard. When you've got to sign a check every year for $40,000 to $50,000 for lunches, you're like, "Ugh." But if you think $40,000 and one person surrendering their life to Christ and impacting their family for eternity, that's worth every single cent. So that's the way we look at it, right? So what we do is we have this new team approach to touching souls, because we see we're not in the employee business, we're in the soul business. Every employee is a gift, a child of God, and is a soul. So if you were looking at another human being as a soul as opposed to someone you could use in a business, it's a different paradigm. You see things differently. So we put this program together. We said, we need triage here. We need our human resource department, which we call employee care department, care and culture department, and our corporate chaplain. We have a caring manager and a caring team. Their only job at Polydeck is to find out if you're in a crisis. They go from door to door, workstation to workstation to say, how you doing? Everything going okay in your life? And when that tear runs down your cheek, we're going to say, what's up? And that's when this resources just come to bear to lift you up and make you feel that God loves you. And so that's our plan, how we've done it. So what's the consequence of that? You may say, you know what, in Harvard Business School, they talk you about ROI and what's all that. Well, let me tell you what the ROI of this God economical business that we have. What is that? So we've got this two sides. We have the left-hand side, which is what we call our internal ROI, so our key performance indicators, business indicators. They talk about customer satisfaction, safety, warranty, on-time delivery, new products, blah, 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 return on assets, all that stuff. But then the one on the right is the eternal ROI. Remember that statement we said? We want to create eternal value by running our business. So we're going to ask ourselves, if God had a scorecard at our company, what would that scorecard be? And that's the one on the right. It's community service. How many of our employees give of their time in the community? What's the stewardship giving? How much do we give back? How do we live out our core values per the employees in a survey that we give them? Are we just talking the talk, or are we walking the walk? We ask them. Does Polydeck respond to you in a time of personal need? 98% of our employees say, you know what, when I have a personal crisis, you're there to the hilt. Competitive wages, employee turnover. And then the last one is, we want to gauge how's all this loving and caring and putting employees and souls in this marinade of God's love, what is the real impact of that on their souls? And we measure that. And just at our company over the last 10 years, we've had 89 faith commitments. God has touched the life of 89 employees who've changed their direction completely. I want to share this, just a quick story with you. There was a gentleman at our company who was heavily addicted to cocaine. His life was upside down. His work performance was gone. His life was a mess. And he came and he had tears in his eyes. He said, please help me. I don't want to lose my job. And we have a policy in our company. You will not lose your job for any addiction, provided you come to us and seek help. So we said to him, are you willing to receive help? He said, please help me. So we put him on a 12-week rehabilitation program. At the end of 12 weeks, he came back to Polydeck. We kept his job for him. And during his 12 weeks, we took care of his family, cut his grass, helped his family survive. Because he says, I can't go on this thing if I don't have a job, if I don't have money. So we took care of all of that. He came back from that a new man. It was a Christian rehabilitation center. A beautiful story. He came back, life was changed, his family changed. 2 years later, we go to an event where we're serving in the community, and we encourage our families and our employees and their families to come. And this little boy comes up to me, and he grabs my leg, and he's like, thank you, sir. And I'm like, okay, I don't know, there was some candy and stuff there. I'm like, hey, you're welcome, buddy. He shook his head. He's like, no, you don't understand. Thank you for saving my dad. He stopped beating my mom. He takes us to church on Sunday. And he's an awesome dad. As a CEO of a company, you cannot imagine you can have the impact on 90 people. But if you live your life that way and you hand your company over to Christ and you say, it's yours, tell me how to run this company. I want to show you what happens to a company that does that. Look at our employee turnover. From the day I went on that retreat, things started to change because I started to live Christ's way. I started loving people. Look at where we are now, 5%. Do you know that the employee turnover costs of replacing and retraining employees pays for our programs? God economics. The next thing, look at what happened to our revenue. It took off. The company went crazy. Our employees felt encouraged. They felt like they had a purpose at work. You know what? It's not to make Peter rich anymore. It's to make this company serve others. And I know that I've been a personal recipient of love, and I want to pay it forward to the next guy by my work. That's purpose, man. The guy's now got purpose in his job. And when he has purpose, he brings his discretionary effort to work. And he works harder than you can ever imagine because he now has a purpose beyond a paycheck. Look at what our revenues have done. If you've ever seen God's blessing on your company, I think this is it. And it's an amazing thing. So if this is so awesome, why do people not do it? We teach it here at college, right? Why does Harvard not say, hey, that's a freaking awesome principle, let's go do that? Why? Well, there's 4 fears that stop people from doing that. I go around the world doing this at CEO conferences all over. I've been invited to Manila, down to Spain, to Chile, to Brazil. Everywhere I speak to CEO groups, and they look at you and they're like, that sounds good, but man, does it really work? And what's the real thing stopping me? These are the 4 things that stop people. Number 1, will I be sued? So if I put God in my documents and I have all this God stuff, can an employee sue me? What if a Muslim or Buddhist employee feels that he's been discriminated against because of his faith or his ethnicity? You could get into trouble. So because of fear, people say, yeah, you know what? I'm just going to leave that to church on Sunday. That's the pastor's job. My job is to make money. Another one is, what will my employees think? You know what the scariest thing for me as I was thinking of jumping off that cliff? Is if I say that I honor God, I actually have to do it. And it's freaking scary. Because people see you every day under pressure. You know, a pastor of a church kind of is a different deal. He gets up there Sunday, provides this beautiful message and sermon and blah, blah, blah. And Monday, no one knows what he's doing. But you know what? As a CEO, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, they watch every move you make. So it's super scary. You think to yourself, you know what? Am I good enough to live that? But that's where you've got to say, I live by the grace of God. And even if I'm not perfect, I'm going to die trying. And that's what it is. You don't have to be perfect in God's economy. It's about just being you and living out those gifts that He's given you. The other one is, can I afford it? Those programs I shared with you, they're expensive. Caring for employees when they're on drugs, I mean, is that a smart way to do business? So it's expensive. And the last one is, what will my customers say? They're customers in Indonesia that live a different lifestyle, different backgrounds. And so what will they say? Will I lose my customers? Is it worth it? Does God want me to lose customers? And the answer is no. But it's scary when you think about it, right? It sounds good up here, but when you actually have to go do it, it's a whole different story. So these are the 4 fears that if you guys get into business one day, that potentially could stop you. And I want you to think about it and pray about it is God truly the master of the universe? I know we're in a Christian school, right? That's what we taught every day. But there's going to be a moment when you have to answer that with all your heart and all your soul. And that answer will determine the path of your life. It's not academic anymore. It becomes real as a heart attack. So after I did this whole journey in our company, I said, God, wow, you've transformed our lives. You've transformed the employees' lives. You've transformed so much. I feel like you've given me this beautiful gift in this laboratory to change people's lives, 89 people's lives. And he put on my heart, I want you to take this to the next level. I'm like, oh, really? There's another calling? What's the next one? He said, I want you to go around the world and I want you to share the story and I want you to coach other people to do this. Give them the resources, inspire them, and give them the tools to be able to implement this and to see the miracle of God economics at work, in the workplace. So I started this organization 10 years ago called His Way at Work. John's been instrumental over the years helping me develop this methodology. And our mission is to inspire and empower business leaders to transform their workplaces with God's love. Has that worked out? That simple thing with Mother Teresa, you can do no great things, only small things with great love, it applies to me. I've gone around and around sharing the simple story, and it's inspired over 120 organizations with over 120,000 employees that today have chaplaincy, that have caring teams, who have Christ in the center of their mission statements across the world in 7 different countries, and it's growing, and it's just beautiful. So it shows you what God can do with a simple little guy from South Africa with a weird accent, with kind of no clue of what he was doing. It's possible. So the question is, what can He do with your life? And there's a simple saying. It says, all the darkness in the world cannot extinguish the light of a single candle. Our world is pretty dark right now. What it needs is light. And each of you are a light. The question is, are you going to let that light shine? Or are you going to be like me, I was? I put a bushel basket over that light. I said, I'll keep that for Sunday, but that's it. The question is, will you take that lid off and will you let your light shine and touch the hearts and souls of people? At the end of the day, I say to my kids often, be the change that you want to see in the world. Don't just demonstrate, go do something. Go make this world a better place and allow Christ's light to shine through you. So with that, I'd ask you just to bow your heads for a second and we close in prayer. Dear Heavenly Father, we just come before you and I thank you for this beautiful opportunity to be able to share to these young, beautiful people whose souls and hearts are open and pliable and open to your word, to this new paradigm of doing business. Wouldn't this world be a beautiful place if every business across America was run this way, with you at the center, with love and caring? It would be a beautiful world. And I just pray, Lord, that you'll inspire at least just one, my prayer is one of these beautiful students, to live their lives in a way that honors you and brings you into their lives, into their workplaces, and into this world in a way that honors you and brings you to the world. I ask this in Jesus' holy name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. As you're dismissed today, make sure that you exit appropriately toward the back, if you're in the back part of the auditorium, and toward the front. God bless you all.
Thanks for joining us for a North Greenville University Chapel service.